this world of struggles around me. Hold my head up high, down the path of my youth where it guides me. The flesh and blood unfolds, secrets of my life I hold. When I needed answers I could find them deep inside. 'Cause I'm the son, still got those innocent kids' eyes. I won't take it on the chin, I'm gonna win, gonna live life. I'm the son, and I was raised from a distance by the world's demands, by the gentle winds of a powerful man. Life has its twists and turns along the traveled journey's end. And time, it's a heavy load, the bumps and crimes along the quest. But how the story goes, nobody really knows. But in every corner you've been right there by my side. 'Cause I'm the son, those innocent kids' eyes. I won't take it on the chin, I'm not gonna win and I gotta live life. I'm the son that was raised from a distance by the world's demands and the gentle rays of a powerful man.
Our guest in this episode is producer, singer, songwriter, and everything instruments, Robert Berry. He's played with members of Yes, Sammy Hagar, Ambrosia, and was the lead singer and bassist of the last recordings with the late Keith Emerson. These recordings also feature Carl Palmer, so it was an Emerson, Lake and Palmer spinoff with Robert Berry in place of Greg Lake. The band was simply called Three. Keith Emerson died of gunshot wound in March of 2016. Robert Berry moved forward with the project, and the album 3.2 was released in July of 2018. It's called The Rules Have Changed. Robert Berry. Yeah, I understand you lost your mom in the interim from when I first started to schedule this.
I did just a couple days ago, yeah. I know.
Well, my condolences.
It's been a little bit of a tough time, but, you know, you have to march on. This is what, you know, I always say, and just to get a little personal, I always wanted to be my dad. My dad had a band. My mom sang in his band. My dad had a music store. I have a recording studio. My dad had two kids, a boy and a girl. I had a boy and a girl, and my dad loved property. I have some property, but it was my mom who made me who I am. She's the one that saw the things I enjoyed and supported me, right behind me with whatever I wanted to do. So it's funny how life works out. But this is what she groomed me to do and knew I loved, so I'm going to do the best to remember her with that.
To carry the torch, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. She was a singer, you know, so I'm a singer. So there you go.
The perfect background. Your dad had a music store?
My dad had... You know, and I don't know if he just did it to influence his little kid. He sold pianos and organs. Then the Beatles came along, and they used Vox amplifiers, like actually Brian May and Queen uses a Vox amp, if you know what that is, AC30.
Yeah, yeah.
And my dad sold them, and I was just a little guy. I had no idea even what they did. But
Vox, did you have a Super Continental organ with the reversed colored keys?
Boy, you know about him. Then, you know, my dad had all that stuff.
Well, that was the coolest thing going, yeah.
Oh, man. That was a great little, and back in the time, you know, all the guys that were in bands in my town here, San Jose, California, which is Silicon Valley,
yeah,
they would always come in. Most of them had Fender stuff, or Feeses, organs, and they all come in to see that English stuff that my dad was importing and play those Vox Continentals. And And these guys were, so a couple of them had hit records here. There's a band called the Count Five had a song called Psychotic Reaction, Syndicate of Sound, Hey Little Girl. And I only know these because they found me years later when I have this recording studio, Teac, and we redid those songs as sound-alikes, but by the original band so that they could own their tracks. In the old days, you had to sign your life away,
Yeah.
So they didn't own their music. And we redid it, which was kind of cool, and it was my job to get it sound exactly like the original.
Wow. Did you ever have
Vox and all.
Did you ever have a Hammond B3 that you moved around? Was a huge piece of furniture?
I still have my B3 at the studio, and Keith Emerson actually played that. We were working together down there, broke a key on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a monster. The way he plays, it's like two sledgehammers and smacking the keyboard.
Yeah, the listeners, when I first heard of you, and I'm sure the listeners will agree, I heard Keith Emerson and Carl Palmer in the conversation, and I was like, oh, Keith Emerson, wow, he passed away like 2.5 years ago, I understand.
Yeah.
Were you working with him at that time, or?
At that time, we were doing a new album together, yeah.
So what were the final notes that he played? Are they listenable? Are they released on something, or?
We have an album. In fact, that's why I've been talking. I've done over 100 interviews on this thing.
Yeah.
The original band in 1988, in 87 or 88, Keith, Carl, and I had a band called Three. We had a top 10 song called Talking About. We toured the album. We had a sold-out tour. We did really great with it. But Keith Emerson had a few fans that wrote him letters that said, you shouldn't be doing what Carl did in Asia. You should be Keith Emerson doing what ELP did. Get Greg back in the band, and how dare you have female background singers? And they really read him the riot act. And unfortunately, the pressure, he bowed to the pressure and broke up the band. And 27 years later, a record company put out a live Three in Boston from 1988 album, and we all signed off, and I was thrilled about it. But Keith just thought, well, it's a paycheck and some money in the bank. But the album showed up at his house. We all got it in the same day before it was released. And he put it on and listened to it, and he called me so excited. He said, God, I'd left it behind because of criticism. We were such a good band. And he went on and on and on. So I said, well, Keith, 27 years later, why don't we do the follow-up? Mm-hmm. And he said, okay, let's do it. So we started working on it, got a record contract with a company in Italy that had been bugging me for like 10 years to do a second Three album, Frontiers Records. And got Keith good money, got us a year to do it. He was very pleased with all that, and we were working a lot by phone. We met a couple times. In fact, the NAMM show, which is the musical instrument show, is coming up in a week or so, and I haven't wanted to go back. The last time I saw Keith in person was the NAMM show of, I guess, 2016, right before he died. And so, I have to go back because there's a tour being planned, and I have a lot of different people to talk to about instruments and all the things we use, and software that I use for mixing the album, and all these people have been involved in it. So I have to go back there, but it's a little bit of a melancholy trip for me.
I bet.
But then, so the album 3.2, instead of calling the band Three, Carl wasn't going to be involved. We were going to do it with Simon Phillips once we got all the vocals, the songs written on the keyboards on it. And we never even got to talk to Simon Phillips. Keith was gone 3 months after it, but we had 5 songs written. I had 20 to 30% of his keyboards already done, and then he was gone, and I wasn't going to finish it. And with a little prodding, and a couple family members talked me into doing it, and I finished it on my own. Took me a year to do it. And it was a labor of love, to say the least. I wasn't sure what I had by the time I was done. I spent so much time trying to, have these conversations with the imaginary Keith Emerson there, saying, what would Keith do here?
Yeah.
What would he have thought of this? But I worked with him so much, especially in the late 80s and earlier days for he and I, in the rehearsal room at his house, which was in England, in a big barn. We had everything was there, the Moog, the GX1 keyboard, all this stuff. every chord imaginable, because he was on the ground floor of chord designing synthesizers, and when we test them and everything, he had all kinds of stuff in that barn. But we spent a lot of time, and since I was a keyboard player too, we spoke more the same language than a guitar player or keyboard player would speak. You know, I could actually play things to him, and he played things back, and I had 8 years of classical piano and 2 years of jazz. You know,
I hear that when you...
No Keith Emerson.
Yeah, I hear that when you play. In fact, you sound like Keith Emerson, but the only reason I would say that is he's the first person that I saw fuse, you know, romantic, classical, jazz, all that together and make it sound easy, you know?
Yeah, he was really amazing. On the new album, of course, we wrote 5 of the songs together, so I already had... If I didn't have his final tracks, I had the working tracks and our demos and stuff. So even though I finished it up keyboard-wise myself, I had so much of Keith to go from, and much of his style. And, you know, I have, like you say, the Hammond B3, you know, I have that. I have the Moog, the Korg Oasis, you know, a keyboard he loved. I have a Yamaha C7 Concert Grand acoustic, you know, piano. I had all the equipment. The Yamaha or the Roland D50 was very big, a big part of the 3 album in 1988, and I have that. I have all the sounds that were made for us, and we wanted to retain the sound quality of 3 from '88, and the tone quality of it, because we really thought there had been nothing quite like it since or before, of course, because there was no D50 before. We just got it, one of the first ones.
Yeah. But
we wanted to bring it into the now, too. So we, you know, kind of had this formula and everything laid out what we were going to do.
So you're a producer, a songwriter, a keyboard player. You play other instruments as well, don't you?
You know, I've made my life in the studio out of doing tracks. Like if you're a guitar player and you come into Soundtech, or Soundtech Studios, I have a state-of-the-art, all Pro Tools, top-of-the-line everything. So Bruce brings in his song and he plays on guitar. I go, okay, well, who do you want to knock off the charts? He say, Aerosmith. I go, okay, well, all right, let's take a look at, you know, how do you fit into that kind of rock, you know, pop rock, a little bit heavier kind of thing, and does your voice, does your song work, does everything? We sort of analyze that. Then if you don't play drums, I go in and I start with the drums, I'll do the bass, then you put your guitar on. And at that point, either we look at, you know, what else we're going to do production-wise, or we have you do your voice. And then I go back in and I'll put some kind of keyboards or whatever it takes. So every day at my studio, I'm playing all the instruments on people's songs. So it's sort of a natural thing for me to do. And I built my business out of it. I call it a business, but I've never worked a day in my life down there. I love every day of it. There's just nothing better.
That's beautiful. So having your father owning a music store, did you get in there like after hours and stuff and play the instruments?
You know, I was so young when my dad had Vox that I could barely play guitar. And I was, you know, still taking classical piano lessons in elementary school. So, I mean, I'd go down there, I'd mess with things. Mainly what I did is I'd rearrange the guitars. He had them on hooks on the wall, and we'd be getting these new Vox Phantom stuff. They got band Paul and the Raiders would do these octagonal shaped guitars they'd use.
Yeah, I remember that.
The teardrops, like they got the Stones. We get them. So I'd rearrange them. So every weekend when all the guys come in, it almost looked like we had new guitars. My dad had all new stuff because they were in different positions, you know. And I moved the amps around, and then I sort of got the dream going. And all these guys who come in from like Count 5 who had Psychotic Reaction hit on the radio, and they have these good-looking girlfriends. I'm like, little guy, you know, wasn't really interested in girls. Been going, wow, these guys got it going. This rock band thing, that's the way to do it. You know, it's like money for nothing. You know, it was the exact opposite. They were moving refrigerators. They were the rock band. I go, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, you were a wise kid.
And, man, I tell you, I had the bug, but you know, as I think about it, and we talk about my mom a little bit. My mom sang in my dad's band on stage. And the band didn't know she was pregnant until she was about 8 months pregnant. She's a very small lady. And she's always, you know, kept very thin and doesn't eat a lot and stuff. And I guess, well, I was being nurtured in the belly there. She was very small, too. So I was actually on stage.
I was going to say,
before I was born.
Yeah.
You know?
And you didn't have stage fright or anything? You were, yeah.
No. It's only recently, about a week ago, that someone told me, do you know that the ear, the bone within the ear, is one of the first bones to develop in an embryo's body? And I didn't know that.
That makes...
put that all together. I like to say I've been sentenced to music. There's nothing else I can do. I can mow lawns, or I can do music, and I don't really like mowing the lawn, so it's music for me.
Yeah, good choice.
Now, are you a musician? I have to ask you.
I am. I mainly guitar now, but
Yeah?
I do vocals and I write songs. And
Right.
yeah, my story is, and I'm going to edit this out because this is all about you, but I played, my whole life. I played trumpet in the school bands and stuff because they didn't have a program for guitar or anything. And I learned like garage band style, like most guitar players that I know.
Sure.
And I played, good 3 years out of high school, and I got to open for Heart, the Ramones, Dr. Hook, some of those bands and stuff. And it was looking really cool, but I thought I have to do something responsible. So I went to college. Yeah, that was, and I got out of college. I went to work for corporations. I worked for General Electric, Sears, mainly in marketing and stuff. And I always played solo a little bit and stayed with it. Always interested. That was always my passion. And then I reached about age 60, and I said, you know what? The hell with this stuff. I'm most recently in real estate, and you have to have a passion for what you're doing, or you're not going to do a good job with it. So then I got the idea to do the podcast and help to fan the fire a little bit more, and so I'm playing solo a little bit now, but it's far more interesting hearing about somebody like you. So that's what we're doing.
You know what? I don't think you should cut that out of our interview here. I find that really interesting because most of the people that I talk to, on the big stations, on podcasts, on whatever it is, the blogs that they do, sometimes they'll talk to me, then they'll put it out, they'll write it, put it out. But you're actually a musician that, you knew about the Vox Continental in the 60s, you know the equipment, you know what it is, and it's a different slant on things. I think that is a good part of why you and I seem to be connecting and kind of having a conversation instead of an interview. It's always better to have a conversation.
Absolutely. I don't really know how to do interviews, but I can talk about music until you're blue in the face. And who are you?
I've been so lucky because before Keith and Carl, I moved to England to play with Steve Howe.
Yeah,
and I was playing guitars and keyboards and GTR. So my musical career, you're talking about passion. I did 110% music. I had some guys got me out of my dad's music store when I was 12, when they were seniors in high school. That was my first band. I was 12, they were 17, and we were playing fraternity parties. My mom would drop me off at 8 o'clock to set up, my organ, and my dad would pick me up at 1:30 in the morning at 12 years old, and they were just fine with that.
Oh, that's quite an age difference between 17 and 12, yeah.
And they drove, they had girlfriends, they drove. I can tell you a funny story. Since you're in the business, I was 13, the second year is with these guys, and they got a gig at Notre Dame Girls High School in San Jose. And they took me aside and they said, look, you tell these girls you're 16 years old.
Oh,
they're going to be all over you. You're a cute guy. They're going to be all over you. You tell them you're 16. I'm 13, and that was scary for me at 13. I went, what? Yeah. We don't want them to think we have a little kid in the band. I go, okay. And I was so shy,
Was your voice cracking at that age, or?
It probably was. I was so uneasy.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Because, I don't know if you know much about Catholic girls' schools, but they're starved for male.
Yeah. I know the stereotype. Yeah.
And, of course, the guys that were 17, some were 18 by that point. This was like being the Beatles and playing Madison Square Garden, girls' school, So I haven't talked to anybody about that. That's so funny. You brought that memory back to me, talking about this stuff. But, you know, like I said, I went over to Steve Howe and Keith and Carl, and when that was done, Sammy Hagar asked me to fill in for about 3 years while Van Halen was having problems toward the end there, and they didn't want Sammy to play with Michael Anthony. So Sam asked me if I'd do it because I'd done some stuff for him, and I actually have my band Alliance, I don't know if you read about it, who's Sammy's old band. When Sammy went to Van Halen, they tried to get me together with Sammy's old band to keep that going, and I had an offer to go to England and work with my heroes in the English, progressive rock field, so I kind of took off. But I came back, and Alliance still needed somebody, so we've been together and friends ever since.
So Alliance had members of Boston in it, correct?
Yeah, Gary Peel, a guitar player. Actually, Gary was Sammy's guitar player.
Oh.
And on, Red and I Can't Drive 55, all that stuff, yeah. Gary was. And our drummer, David Lauser, was Sammy's drummer. Well, and Alan Fitzgerald actually played in Sammy's band then, but he was in Montrose before that with Sammy. Wow. So it was an amazing band. I mean, and we're working on a new album right now that's about half the way done, out toward the end of the year. And but I've just been lucky, that you
Robert,
this all started with just like passion, and that's what makes things happen.
You're naming off my heroes left and right. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. So wow.
Well, I say I'm the luckiest guy you never heard of because I'm in it because I love it. I'm not in it to make $1 billion. I'm not in it to be, Sammy Hagar famous, that kind of thing.
Mm.
I can't do anything else, no matter what happens. I mean, I'm having such great success with the last work of Keith Emerson 3.2. It's amazing, the reviews. And man, I just found out yesterday, it came out August 10th, and it's sold out by noon in every country.
Wow.
So it took them 6 weeks to get the reorder back in because they just didn't realize they'd sell so many. So the record company finally gets them back in. I was told yesterday they're sold out again. Amazon has no copies to sell. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This record company's falling behind, but people are still, they're ordering it no matter how many copies they have. They're going and they're getting it, and it's been such, such a reward to have done so much work and want Keith's last thing to be a great album and worthy of the name Keith Emerson. That it's just really nice to have it received like it's being received.
I'm gonna write this letter. Think about the words to say, but the minutes fly, they fly away without a sound. Writing down my heart as if no one ever heard it quite like this. Not this kind of thing before, honesty and more, the truth all over it. Yet all the letters blur in rhyme. Through tears I see every line. I can't exactly wrap my head around what it means me loving you. And I'll see you through with every word I say, yeah, and every single day. And satisfied is hardly it. I can't explain the way it is. Though miracles may be, your love I never thought I'd live to see. Searching for the sheltered space, not the world before, that hiding place. just one deep breath, what it really means to have faith. Recoloring my life in pictures, painted nothing like my universe before. We struggle in between the lines, it gets harder every time, but can't give up on dreams. Yes, together we've found this time. The music rings out as we climb. I still can't really figure out what it means me loving you. And you know I'll see you through with every word I say, yeah, in every single day. And satisfied is hardly it. I can't explain the way it is, though miracles may be. Your love I never thought I'd live to see. Falling down the rough times when I hit the ground. Every time I thought I had it right, I was uncertain, couldn't close my eyes. Find what I felt inside, just nothing, just empty in my
We'll continue on a following episode with Robert Berry.
listening to the Better Each Day podcast radio show with Bruce Hilliard. We'll be back with a new horizon, but until then, honor the future. It comes with a lifetime guarantee.
And we're all just trying to make the next day a bit better.